The blue-skinned Captain Ray stood at his post on the Coalition security vessel's bridge, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the strange ship that had just entered their space. It was unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen before. Blocky, practical, and somehow threatening despite its small size. The ship's design ignored all the elegant engineering principles that the Coalition races had followed for centuries. Unknown vessel, this is Coalition Security Ship Guardian. Please identify yourself, Ray transmitted, following standard first contact protocols. His crew waited nervously as the message was sent across the void. The response came quickly, but not in the way they expected. The unknown ship's engines flared brightly, and it accelerated away from them at surprising speed. Behind it, 3 sleek vessels emerged from stealth, clearly in pursuit. Pirates, the scourge of the outer sectors. Captain, his sensor officer called out, the unknown ship appears damaged. Its engine housing shows signs of weapons fire. Ray's secondary hearts began beating faster. This was no longer a simple first contact scenario. It was a rescue situation. He opened a channel to Coalition Command. This is Captain Ray. We have an unknown vessel being pursued by confirmed pirates, requesting permission to intervene. The next 20 minutes felt like hours as the council debated. Ray watched helplessly as the unknown ship tried to evade its pursuers. Its movements were strange, erratic yet purposeful, like a wounded animal that still remembered how to fight. Permission granted. Command finally responded. Render assistance but maintain caution. Unknown species status. Potential Coalition contact. Ray immediately ordered his ship to battle stations. The Guardian was 3 times the size of the pirate vessels. Its mere presence should be enough to deter them. But just as the Guardian began to move to intercept, something extraordinary happened. The damaged ship suddenly cut its engines. For a brief moment, it hung motionless in space. Then panels along its hull slid aside, revealing weapon ports that had been perfectly concealed. The pirates, caught completely off guard, had no time to react. The supposedly helpless vessel fired a barrage of missiles, their drives burning bright against the darkness of space. 2 pirate ships were hit directly, their shields failing under the unexpected assault. The third tried to flee but was caught in a web of precise energy weapon fire. Ray and his crew watched in stunned silence as the damaged ship efficiently disabled all 3 pirate vessels. Its movements were now sharp and precise. There was no sign of the previous damage or distress. By the 4 moons, Ray whispered, it was hunting them. The unknown ship then turned its attention to the Guardian. A transmission came through, this time in clear Coalition standard language. Coalition vessel, this is Captain Tom of the Earth research ship Starseeker. We apologize for the deception, but we needed to draw out these pirates who have been attacking ships in this sector. We would be grateful for assistance in detaining them. Ray felt his facial scales tighten in disbelief. Research ship? You claim to be a research vessel. Of course, Captain Tom replied, and Ray could hear what seemed like amusement in the alien's voice. We're a deep space research vessel with standard defensive capabilities. All human ships are equipped for combat. It would be foolish to venture into unknown space otherwise. The implications of this statement sent a chill through Ray's body. If this was merely a research vessel with standard defensive capabilities, what did a human warship look like? Hours later, after the pirates had been detained and formal first contact procedures were finally initiated, Ray sat in his quarters writing his report to Coalition Command. He chose his words carefully. The species known as humans appears to have no concept of truly civilian vessels. Their so-called research ship demonstrated military capabilities that match our light combat vessels. Most concerning is their comfort with deception as a tactic and their casual attitude toward combat. He paused, then added, recommend immediate review of Coalition contact protocols. These humans represent something entirely new, a species that seems to have evolved with constant military readiness as a core aspect of their civilization. We must approach with extreme caution. As he finished his report, Ray couldn't help but wonder if they had just made contact with a valuable new ally, or something far more dangerous. The Coalition's main diplomatic hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 species gathered to meet the human delegation. Giant screens showed the human ship docked at the station, its blocky form standing out among the smooth Coalition vessels like a predator among peaceful grazers. Ambassador Jack walked into the hall with 2 other humans, their movements careful in the lighter gravity. The Coalition members noticed how the humans constantly scanned the room, noting exits and positions of security personnel. Even in diplomatic dress, they moved like soldiers. Head Speaker Lori, the eldest of the Coalition Council, stepped forward. Her crystalline form caught the light as she gave the traditional greeting. "We welcome you in peace and hope for understanding between our peoples. We return your welcome and share your hope for peace," Jack replied smoothly, but many council members noticed his hand never strayed far from a small device on his belt. Later, they would learn it was a personal shield generator. Another example of human paranoia. The initial pleasantries gave way to harder questions. "Why do you arm your research vessels?" asked Representative Mick, his feathers rustling with agitation. Surely scientific pursuit should be separate from military capability. Jack's expression remained neutral. With respect, that separation nearly led to the extinction of our species in our early space age. We lost 3 unarmed research ships to what you would call natural space phenomena before we learned our lesson. After that, we made a choice. Every human ship would be able to defend itself. "But the level of weaponry on your research vessel exceeds our military patrol ships," protested another council member. "The Star Seeker carries what we consider minimal defensive capabilities," Jack explained. "Just enough to survive until help arrives. Would you send your children into the wilderness without teaching them to protect themselves?" The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. The concept seemed to divide the Coalition members. Some were horrified by the constant military preparedness, while others showed signs their species recognized as thoughtful consideration. Head Speaker Lori raised her crystalline arms for silence. "You speak of children and survival, yet your ship used deception. It pretended to be damaged to lure pirates into a trap. How can we trust a species that treats dishonesty as a tactical tool?" For the first time, Jack showed genuine surprise. "You consider it dishonesty. We see it as wisdom. The best victory is the one achieved with minimal loss of life. By appearing weak, we prevented a larger conflict that could have endangered more lives, both human and Coalition." The debate continued for hours. The humans explained their history, their constant fight for survival on a planet that tried to kill them daily. They spoke of predators that shaped their evolution, of natural disasters that taught them to prepare for the worst, and of conflicts that showed them the value of both strength and restraint. "Every human ship has weapons," Jack concluded, "but notice that we disabled the pirates rather than destroying them. We have the capacity for great violence, yes, but we choose to use it only when necessary. That choice, that control, is what makes us civilized." As the session ended, Head Speaker Lori met privately with Jack. "Your words are wise, but some council members fear what other surprises your species might have. The Star Seeker's capabilities were unexpected. What should we expect from your actual military vessels?" Jack smiled gently. "Madam Speaker, I hope you never have to find out. We believe that peace comes through strength and preparedness, not weakness and hope. Every human knows that the most dangerous animal is not the one that displays his weapons, but the one that keeps them hidden until threatened." Lori's crystalline form shimmered with concern. "Some would call that a threat." "Not a threat," Jack corrected. "A lesson learned through centuries of survival. We come in peace, but we come prepared for anything else. That's how we've survived, and that's how we'll continue to explore the galaxy." As the human delegation departed, Lori added a personal note to the official record. "The humans are neither as aggressive as some fear, nor as peaceful as others hope. They are something we've never encountered before. a species that has embraced both war and peace so completely that they see no contradiction between them. The question now is whether our coalition can adapt to their presence, or if our differences will lead us to conflict. Pirate Lord Drake watched the convoy through his ship's main viewer. 6 large human cargo vessels moved slowly through space, their holds presumably full of supplies for their new colony. His fleet of 20 ships had been tracking them for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "They're far enough from coalition space now," his second-in-command said. "No patrol ships in range. And look how slow and bulky those cargo ships are. This will be easy prey." Drake wasn't so sure. The incident with the human research vessel had made him cautious, but his crew was hungry for action. "Any escorts?" he asked. None detected, not even defensive screens. They must be confident in coalition protection. Too bad they've passed the border. Drake studied the convoy again. Something felt wrong. The ships were too exposed, too vulnerable. But the reward would be worth the risk. Human technology was valuable, even if it was ugly and primitive looking. "All ships, attack pattern Sigma," Drake ordered. "Disable their engines first. I want those ships intact." His fleet moved in perfect formation, surrounding the convoy. The cargo ships made no attempt to flee. In fact, they didn't react at all. "This is too easy," Drake muttered. Then his tactical officer screamed. The sides of the cargo ships were falling away, revealing what lay beneath. Each vessel's boxy exterior was just a shell, hiding sleek warships underneath. Where there had been 6 slow cargo ships, now there were 6 warships, their weapons already locked on Drake's fleet. "Attention pirate vessels," a calm human voice transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Colonel West of the Human Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Drake laughed. 6 ships against 20. Check your math, human." "Oh, those aren't our warships," Colonel West replied. "These are just colony defense vessels. We use them to protect our settlements. But since you mentioned math..." The cargo shells that had been discarded began to change shape. Each piece of debris transformed into a smaller combat vessel, adding another 18 ships to the human fleet. "You see," West continued, "humans believe in recycling. Even our disguises are weapons. Now, would you like to surrender? Or should we demonstrate what our defense vessels can really do?" Drake's sensor officer's voice shook. "Sir, they're weapons. The energy readings are off the scale. Those aren't civilian guns." "Of course not," West replied, having heard the transmission. "There's no such thing as a civilian ship in human space. There are just ships with different levels of defensive capability. Would you like to see what we consider a proper defense?" One of Drake's ships panicked and fired. The human response was immediate and overwhelming. The defense vessels moved in perfect coordination, their formation flowing like water. Energy beams lashed out with surgical precision, disabling weapons and engines, but leaving life support intact. In under 2 minutes, 15 pirate ships were dead in space. The remaining 5, including Drake's flagship, found themselves trapped in an interlocking grid of targeting locks. "Now then," West said pleasantly, "let's discuss the terms of your surrender. After that, we can have a lovely chat about all the other pirate bases in this sector. I'm sure you'll find me very interested in everything you have to say." Later, after the pirates had been detained and their ships secured, Drake sat in a holding cell, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. A guard passed by, and Drake called out to him. "I don't understand. Why go to all this trouble? Why not just travel with real warships?" The guard stopped and smiled. "Because that wouldn't have caught as many pirates. And besides, this was more efficient. The shells really do carry cargo. We'll deliver them to the colony after we drop you off. Humans never waste an opportunity to multitask." As the guard walked away, Drake realized the horrible truth. If these were just defense vessels designed to protect colonies, what were actual human warships like? He shuddered, grateful that he hadn't had to find out. In his report to Coalition Security, Colonel West simply wrote, "Pirate threat in Sector 7 neutralized. No casualties on either side. Request permission to continue convoy escort duties. Note: recommend updating Coalition ship classification protocols. Current system fails to account for human multi-role vessel capabilities." The report included a postscript. Also, please inform Coalition Command that in human terms, this was a police action, not a military operation. We find it best to be clear about these distinctions. The Coalition Security Council's emergency meeting chamber was packed. Representatives from all member species sat around the circular table, their attention fixed on the holographic display in the center. It showed recordings of the recent human encounter with the pirate fleet. Admiral Pax, a veteran of countless space battles, replayed the transformation sequence again. The cargo ship shells peeled away like flower petals, revealing the deadly vessels hidden within. His tentacles curled in agitation. "Look at the precision," he said, pointing with 3 limbs. "This isn't some desperate defensive measure. This is a carefully designed military strategy. The humans planned this from the beginning." Head Speaker Laurie's crystalline form pulsed with concerned colors. Their ambassador claimed all their ships had standard defensive capabilities. How do we classify vessels that can do this? The Council's chief analyst, Master Till, stepped forward. His mechanical eye whirred as he focused on the display. "That's the problem. We've been analyzing their ship classifications all wrong. Humans don't think like us." The hologram changed to show different human vessels they'd encountered so far. "See, we divide ships into civilian and military categories. Humans divide them by primary and secondary purposes. Every human ship is a weapon. They just decide what else it should do besides fight. Surely they must have some purely peaceful vessels," one representative argued. "Their children, their families." Till shook his head. "Their colony ships are armed. Their medical ships are armed. We found records of something they call escape pods. Even those have point defense systems. It's integrated into every aspect of their engineering." The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Admiral Pax raised his tentacles for silence. "There's more. We've been studying their historical records. Do you know how long humans have been fighting wars?" The hologram shifted to show a timeline. It stretched back far longer than anyone expected, filled with countless conflicts. "They've been fighting since before they invented writing," Pax continued. "Their entire history is an endless cycle of war and peace, and here's the truly frightening part. They'd gotten better at both. They fight more effectively and make peace more permanently than they did before. But they haven't attacked us," Head Speaker Laurie noted. "They've been respectful of our laws, helpful even. The pirate threat in 3 sectors has almost disappeared since they arrived." "That's what worries me," Till said. "Everything we've seen suggests humans are always preparing for war, yet they're actively avoiding it. It's like watching a predator pretend to be harmless. We need to know why." A junior analyst rushed into the chamber, his scales flushed with excitement. "Masters, we've decoded more of their historical transmissions. You need to see this." A hologram changed again, showing scenes from human entertainment broadcasts. Space battles, heroic last stands, desperate fights against overwhelming odds. But mixed in were scenes of peaceful exploration, scientific discovery, and cooperation between different human cultures. "Look at the dates," the junior analyst pointed out. "These aren't historical records. These are stories they tell their children. They teach them to be both peaceful explorers and warriors simultaneously." Admiral Pax's tentacles twisted in complex patterns of worry. "We need to control this situation. I propose immediate restrictions on human vessel movements through coalition space, mandatory inspections, limited armament, no more of these transforming ships." "And if they refuse?" Laurie asked. "Then we'll know their true intentions," Pax replied grimly. Till's mechanical eye whirred again. "With respect, Admiral, I believe that would be a serious mistake. Think about what we've learned. Humans don't divide peace and war the way we do. Everything we've seen suggests they're trying to protect themselves while avoiding conflict. If we treat them as a threat, then we risk making them one. Lori finished, her crystalline form dimmed in thought. But we can't ignore the danger they represent. Their very way of thinking challenges everything our coalition stands for. The council debated long into the night. Finally, they'd reached a decision. New regulations would be imposed on all non-coalition vessels, carefully worded to avoid singling out humans specifically. It seemed like a reasonable compromise. None of them realized they had just taken the first step toward a confrontation that would reveal just how little they truly understood about humanity's capacity for both war and peace. The merchant ship Rising Star hung motionless in space as 3 coalition patrol vessels surrounded it. Its captain, Robert Gray, watched calmly as they took up attack positions. The new regulations had been in effect for less than a week, and already things were going exactly as he had warned the human diplomatic courts they would. Human vessel Rising Star. The coalition commander's voice crackled over the comm. Your ship has been selected for random inspection. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Gray sighed and pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. Initiate Protocol 7. He then switched to the external channel. Coalition Patrol, this is Captain Gray. I'm afraid I must inform you that under Article 7 of the Human Space Treaty, any attempt to forcefully board a human vessel is considered an act of war. Please withdraw to a safe distance. The coalition commander laughed. Captain, your vessel is classified as a merchant ship. These regulations apply to all civilian vessels in coalition space. There seems to be some confusion, Gray replied. The Rising Star's primary function is commerce, yes, but like all human ships, it is a military vessel by design. Article 7 applies to all human ships, regardless of their primary function. You would declare war over a simple inspection? The commander asked incredulously. Not at all. I'm simply informing you of the legal consequences of your actions. The choice is yours. The coalition vessels maintained their position. Gray noted their weapons were powered but not locked. They still didn't understand. Final warning. Coalition Patrol. Any attempt to board this vessel will trigger an automatic response. I cannot override this protocol, even if I wanted to. Please withdraw. The coalition commander's voice hardened. Captain Gray, you will comply with coalition regulations or... A new signal cut through all channels. 3 words, broadcast in plain text. ARTICLECVEN. Activated. Deep in human space, automated systems that had lain dormant for centuries hummed to life. Quantum entanglement communicators, technology the coalition didn't even know existed, transmitted faster than light. And in dark, quiet corners of space, things that had been sleeping began to wake. On the coalition patrol ship's sensors, something impossible appeared. A massive vessel seemed to phase into existence less than a kilometer away, appearing from nowhere with no warning. It was sleek, deadly, and unmistakably human in design. But unlike the utilitarian vessels they'd seen before, this one was built for a single purpose. This is the HFY Defender, a new voice announced. Coalition Patrol, you have 30 seconds to withdraw from weapons range of our merchant vessel. This is not a negotiation. The coalition commander sputtered. Where did you come from? Our sensors showed nothing in range. 40 years ago, the Defender's captain replied calmly. Humanity seeded every sector of known space with automated defense platforms and hidden rapid response vessels. They'd been watching, waiting, and recording. Article 7 activated them. You have 15 seconds remaining. The coalition ship's sensors finally processed the Defender's true size. It was 3 times larger than their largest vessel, and their scans couldn't even penetrate its outer hull. 10 seconds, the Defender announced. Be aware that diplomatic solutions become significantly more complicated once weapons are fired. The coalition commander ordered an immediate withdrawal. As his ships retreated, he noticed something even more terrifying on his long-range sensors. More ships were appearing throughout Coalition space, near every major trading route and colony. Back on the Rising Star, Captain Gray sent a private message to the Defender. Was this show of force really necessary? The diplomatic corps thought it would be more efficient than letting the situation escalate through smaller incidents, came the reply. Sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to show exactly why fighting would be a bad idea. Gray nodded to himself. The Coalition would soon learn that humanity's dedication to peace was matched only by their preparation for war. It wasn't a contradiction. It was a carefully maintained balance that had kept human space safe for centuries. As the Coalition patrol disappeared into the distance, Gray began composing his report to Human Command. The first line read, Article 7 has been invoked. The sleeping fleet awakens. May the Coalition choose wisdom over pride. Admiral Pax stood on the bridge of the Coalition's flagship, the Grand Defender, watching as his fleet of 200 ships moved into attack formation. The humans had revealed their hidden fleet, and the Coalition Council had voted to respond with force. They would show these humans that the Coalition wasn't defenseless. All ships report ready, his second-in-command announced. The human vessels remained stationary. Through the main viewer, Pax could see the human battle line. Only 50 ships, spread out in a loose formation that made no tactical sense to him. His tactical officers had identified the HFY Defender among them, but the rest were unknown designs. Send the demand for their surrender, Pax ordered. His fleet had them outnumbered 4-1. Even with superior technology, the humans couldn't hope to win. The response came immediately. Coalition fleet, this is Admiral Kate of the Human Defense Force. One last time. Withdraw your ships and return to peaceful negotiations. What you've seen so far isn't even a fraction of our capabilities. Pax's tentacles curled in anger. You hide warships in our space, threaten our patrols, and still claim to want peace. Begin the attack. The Coalition fleet surged forward, energy weapons charging. The human ships didn't move. They didn't raise shields. They just waited. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, voice shaking. The human ships, they're changing. The transformation was unlike anything they'd seen before. The human vessels seemed to unfold, panels sliding away to reveal weapon systems that dwarfed anything on their previous ships. But worse than that, each ship was splitting apart, smaller vessels emerging from within like deadly butterflies from metal cocoons. Where there had been 50 ships, there were now more than 300, and they were still transforming. By the eternal stars, someone whispered, they're not ships at all. They're carrier groups. Admiral Kate's voice came through again. Coalition fleet, power down your weapons. Those weren't warships you found hidden in your space. They were just the rapid response units. These are warships. This is your final warning. Pax's pride wouldn't let him back down. All ships, open fire. The Coalition fleet released its full fury. Thousands of energy beams and projectiles streaking across space. They hit. Nothing. The human ships flowed around the attacks like water, their movements impossibly graceful for their size. Then the humans responded. Each carrier group attacked as a single unit, smaller ships moving in perfect coordination with their parent vessel. They didn't target the Coalition ships' weapons or engines. They simply passed through the fleet, their energy fields disrupting every system they touched. Status report. Pax demanded as his flagship's lights flickered. All systems failing. But they're not destroying anything. They're just turning everything off. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Coalition fleet hung powerless in space. No weapons, no engines, no communications. Only life support and basic gravity remained functional. A single human shuttle approached the Grand Defender. Through the viewport, Pax watched as it docked with impossible precision. The airlock cycled, and Admiral Kate walked onto his bridge. She was shorter than he expected, and she carried no visible weapons. You could have destroyed us, Pax said quietly. That would have been wasteful, Kate replied. And contrary to our mission, humanity hasn't survived this long by destroying potential allies. Allies? After this? Yes, because now you understand what we've been trying to tell you. Every human ship you've seen before this, the research vessels, the merchants, the colonists, they were just people going about their lives, carrying reasonable defenses. This, she gestured to the fleet outside. This is what we created after centuries of war taught us the true cost of conflict. We built this fleet not to fight wars, but to end them before they begin. Through the viewport, Pax watched as the human ships began transforming again, folding themselves back into their compact configurations. The Council will never accept this level of military power in coalition space, he warned. Kate smiled. They already have. Think about it. We've had these ships hidden in your space for decades. We could have conquered the coalition 100 times over. Instead, we helped protect your trade routes and hunt down pirates. Now, shall we discuss peace terms? The Coalition Council chamber was quiet as Ambassador Jack walked in with Admiral Kate. 3 days had passed since the battle, and the mood had shifted from fear to a strange mix of respect and curiosity. The council members had spent those days reviewing centuries of human history that had previously been hidden from them. Head Speaker Laurie's crystalline form glowed with a new understanding as she addressed the human representatives. "We've been blind," she began. "We saw your armed merchants and thought you warlike. We saw your hidden fleet and thought you deceitful. But we were looking at the painting while missing the picture. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons," Jack replied. "It's our memory. We remember every war, every loss, every lesson learned in blood. We build weapons not because we want to use them, but because we remember what happens when you're not ready to defend yourself." Admiral Pax, now serving as military advisor to the Council, raised a tentacle. "Your ships could have destroyed my entire fleet. Instead, you disabled us with minimal damage. Even your weapons show restraint. The deadliest weapon is often the one you never have to fire," Admiral Kate said. "We call it the doctrine of overwhelming peace. Maintain such strength that war becomes unthinkable, but never use that strength for conquest." The council chamber's main display activated, showing scenes from human history. Not the wars this time, but the aftermath. Former enemies rebuilding together, alliances forged from conflict, peace treaties that had lasted centuries. "We've discovered something interesting in your records," Master Till announced, his mechanical eye whirring. "Over the last 500 years, as human military capability increased, the frequency of actual combat decreased. You became more peaceful as you became more powerful. Power without wisdom is just violence waiting to happen," Jack explained. "Every human child learns about the wars that nearly destroyed us. We build weapons and hide fleets in every corner of space, not because we expect to use them, but because their very existence means we probably won't have to." A younger council member spoke up. "But why hide your true capabilities from us? Why not be open from the beginning?" Admiral Kate smiled. "Would you have believed us? If we had arrived announcing we had the power to defeat your entire fleet, would you have seen us as anything but conquerors? Instead, we showed you our civilian ships, armed, yes, but only for defense. We let you discover our capabilities gradually, while demonstrating our commitment to peace through actions rather than words." Head Speaker Laurie's colors shifted to the pattern of formal declaration. "The Coalition Council has reached a decision. We propose a new type of alliance with humanity, not just mutual defense, but mutual understanding. We ask that you teach us how you balance such strength with such restraint." "And in return?" Jack asked. "In return, we offer what you've been quietly protecting all along: true partnership. Your hidden fleets have been guarding our trade routes and colonies for decades without reward or recognition. Let us acknowledge that protection officially and work together openly." The chamber erupted in agreement indicators from all species present. Even Admiral Pax's tentacles moved in the pattern of military respect. "There is one condition," Laurie added. No more hidden fleets, not because we fear them, but because allies shouldn't need to hide their strength from each other. Jack and Kate exchanged glances, then nodded. Agreed, Jack said. Though I should mention that what you've seen isn't our entire fleet. The ships that were revealed were just the rapid response force. Our main battle groups are somewhat more substantial. The council chamber went quiet again, but this time the silence wasn't fearful. It was thoughtful, filled with the kind of respect that comes from finally understanding a truth that had been there all along. Humanity doesn't want war, Jack concluded. We never did. What we want is so simple it took us thousands of years to learn it. The strength to defend peace, the wisdom to maintain it, and allies who understand both. As the formal alliance was signed, a message went out to every human ship in Coalition space. Protocol 7 amended. Coalition space now designated as protected Allied territory. All hidden units to maintain watch status. Primary mission unchanged. Peace through strength, victory through restraint. The warning that had once read, "Human warship incoming," was replaced with a new one. Human allies standing guard.